Okay, so we're going to look at how to derive the quadratic equation by completing the square. So if we think of a quadratic in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and we want to complete the square here. Well, the first thing we have to do, you can only complete the square if the a is 1. So we are going to have to divide the a out to get rid of whatever a is. A might be 1, but in this case it could be anything. So we're going to divide each term by a, and that's going to give us x squared, because a divided by a is 1, plus b over ax, so the coefficient is b over a, plus c over a equals 0. Alright, well we know to complete the square that we only need this term and this term, so let's move the other term to the other side by subtracting it, minus c over 2a. So we're going to complete the square with x squared plus b over ax. b over a is the coefficient, and then on the other side we have negative c over a. So we're going to complete the square here on this left side and the right side, I guess. We got to add the same thing to both sides to complete the square. So what we add to both sides is half of the middle coefficient squared. So the middle coefficient is b over a. So half of that would be b over 2a, because we'd be multiplying it by 1/2. I'll do that over here. So b over a times 1/2 is b over 2a. And then to get what we're adding here, we'd have to square it. So b squared over 4a squared. So what we would have to add here is b squared over 4a squared. We'd have to add it to the other side as well, 4a squared. Alright, that allows us to have a perfect square here. X plus b over 2a squared. It's our perfect square because this is a perfect square trinomial. We just made it that way. Now on this other side, I do want to combine these into one term, which means I need a common denominator. And the common denominator here would have to be 4a squared. So for the blue negative c over a, to make sure that that becomes that the denominator becomes 4a squared, I would have to multiply the denominator by 4a, because 4a times a is 4a squared, which means I also have to multiply the numerator by 4a. So what I'm going to get here is negative 4ac, 4 times a times c on the top, over 4a squared, 4a times a is a square, 4a squared, plus b squared over 4a squared. So now that these have a common denominator, I can combine them into one term. Either negative 4ac plus b squared, or I could rearrange them and have the b squared first minus the 4ac over 4a squared. And then on the left side I still have my perfect square, x plus b over 2a squared. Alright, so let's start from this. Now this is in a solvable form, so let's try to solve this here. So let me take this and put it on another page here. Whoops, I need a new page. Okay, how do I get back to my previous page? Alright, I guess I'm just going to have to... So what I had was x plus b over 2a squared. And then on the other side, I had b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. At this point, it's in a solvable form. I can square root both sides to get rid of the square, and I have the plus or minus. So the left side becomes x plus b over 2a, and the right side is plus or minus, and I'm going to split this square root symbol to the numerator and the denominator, because I can find the square root of the denominator. So the numerator is plus minus b squared square root of b squared minus 4ac. The numerator, however, the denominator, square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. So that simplifies. This denominator simplifies to 2a if I take the square root of it. Alright, at this point, I'm solving for my x here, so I would have to subtract b over 2a from both sides. So I have x is equal to negative b over 2a plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And since I have a common denominator here, I can combine these. They have a common denominator of 2a, so I can add them. I can add their numerators. So I have x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, and it's all over 2a. And that is the quadratic formula. I found this quadratic formula by solving a very basic, the most general form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. I solved this by completing the square, which will give me the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.